I'd owned my little slice of heaven for 10 years, private marina tucked away from the main drag. That morning, I found a pristine, laminated sign stapled to my fence post. It read, in bold, Helvetica font, private property, homeowners association access only. Violators will be prosecuted. My blood went cold. What in the hell? I've never been a confrontational guy. Not really. I prefer the quiet hum of my boat engine and the smell of salt water on a crisp morning to any kind of squabble. But this felt personal. My peaceful sanctuary, hijacked by a piece of paper. I ran my hand over the weathered wood of the fence, feeling a fresh throb of anger with every chipped paint fleck. The sign was so obnoxiously new, so perfectly rectangular. It was an affront to everything this place stood for. A gentle breeze rolled in off the water, bringing with it the faint scent of diesel fuel and freshly cut grass from the park across the inlet. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. It didn't work. The sign just felt wrong, an unwelcome intrusion in a world I had built with my own two hands. Who would even do this? A groan of frustration escaped my lips. I already knew the answer. There was only one person in this neighborhood with enough audacity and a deep-seated belief that they, and they alone, could police everyone else's existence. Her name was Brenda. Brenda, with her perfect bob haircut and a smile that never quite reached her eyes, was the self-appointed queen of the Homeowners Association. A position that came with zero actual power but an infinite amount of entitlement. I saw her pulling up in her sparkling white SUV, an air of self-satisfaction radiating from her like a heat lamp. She parked a little too close to my truck, got out, and adjusted the cuff of her tasteful but expensive cardigan. "Oh, hello, Cal," she said, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. "Just making sure everyone is aware of the new rules." She gestured grandly to the sign, as if she were a maestro introducing the final, triumphant chord of a symphony. My stomach churned. "What rules?" I asked, my voice dangerously low. "This isn't Homeowners Association property, Brenda. This is my land." She let out a laugh, a short, clipped sound devoid of humor. "Well, you know, we had a community vote for the safety of the children, so they don't wander down here, and for the property values, of course." Her eyes flickered over my boat, a look of thinly veiled disgust in them. She clearly thought it was too old, too used. She probably wanted a gleaming, plastic-looking boat herself. I watched her, a slow burn starting in my chest. A community vote? Funny, I didn't recall any such meeting. I had a feeling the only community involved was the one inside her head. I wanted to yell, to ask her what gives her the right, but a sigh escaped my lips instead. A deep, defeated breath that felt like surrendering a piece of my soul. It's impossible to argue with people like her, isn't it? They just hear what they want to hear. She turned and strutted away, leaving me there with the offending sign and a feeling of utter helplessness. The taste in my mouth was bitter, like unsweetened coffee. But as the afternoon wore on, helplessness turned into something else. The quiet frustration simmered and then hardened into resolve. I sat in my small workshop, the air thick with the smell of sawdust and old motor oil, a new plan forming in my mind. I wasn't going to just take the sign down. That would be too easy. She'd just put it back up, or worse, get a lawyer involved. No, I had a better idea. An idea born from equal parts frustration and cold, clear logic. I went to the town clerk's office and pulled the deed for my property. A surprisingly simple process. The paperwork, yellowed and crisp, had the survey lines and property description right there. Not an inch of my land was part of the HOA's jurisdiction. I had the proof. A small smile touched my lips. I drove to the local hardware store and bought a blank white sign and a box of black, permanent markers. My hand didn't shake as I wrote the new message. The letters were big, clean, and unambiguous. And then, I bought a can of bright red spray paint. just for a little flourish. The next morning, I was up before the sun. The air was cool and smelled of dew and promise. With a drill and a couple of screws, I fastened my new sign to the fence right next to Brenda's. It was a beautiful sight. My sign was plain, direct, and factual. "Not your HOA's property," it declared, with a bold red line spray-painted right through Brenda's sign. I stood back, admiring my handiwork. It wasn't about being rude. It was about stating a fact with a bit of style. The satisfaction was immediate, a deep and calming feeling. A few hours later, I saw Brenda's car pull up. Her expression was a work of art, a magnificent blend of disbelief, fury, and utter outrage. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. She tried to pull my sign down, but I had screwed it in tight. She went into a full meltdown, pulling out her phone and shrieking at the heavens. I heard her on the phone. "He's vandalized community property. He's crazy. I'm calling the police." I just smiled. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. When the officer arrived, he looked confused, sizing up the two competing signs. He looked at my calm expression, and then at Brenda's beet red, contorted face. She was practically vibrating with rage. "This man has defaced our homeowners association sign. Officer, this is a criminal offense," she shrieked, pointing a trembling finger at my handiwork. The officer, a young guy named Garcia, just looked at me. "Sir?" he asked. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out the deed and handed it to him. He read it, his eyes scanning the lines, and then looked at Brenda, a serious expression on his face. "Ma'am, I hate to tell you this, but this man's deed shows this property is not under the jurisdiction of the homeowners association. Your sign is on his private land, and he has every right to remove it or paint over it. In fact, you're trespassing. I'm going to have to ask you to take down your sign and not return." The blood drained from Brenda's face. The perfect bob seemed to droop. The air went out of her, and she stood there, defeated. A wave of quiet karma settled over the Marina. She looked at me, her eyes filled with a desperate, venomous hatred, but all I felt was a profound sense of peace. Justice, I realized, isn't always a grand gesture. Sometimes, it's just a sign on a fence, reminding you that your peace is yours to protect. This is a draft to get you started on your story. It's a fun one to write. Let me know if you would like me to adjust the length, change the tone, or add a different twist. We can make the ending even more dramatic if you'd like.